This one is about how organic is primarily a marketing decision. You know, for an organic crop improvement association, that might sound a little strange to say this is primarily a marketing decision. I want to lay some stuff out for you here in terms of the technical side and how it interacts with marketing. Before I get there, I want to try to draw for you the overall picture of marketing issues. Okay, because if you don't understand the large context in which we operate, as I said this morning, it's not entirely a free market. Okay, if you don't understand that large context in which we operate, it's easy to make a lot of errors. Okay, here's one of the things that I think is important. Remember that little graph or that little chart that I did for price and yield? Okay, we could do the same thing for marketing. I could do it for 9, but I'm going to make it really simple, in this case with 4. Okay, if this is your volume, the volume that you're moving, okay? The volume of product, so low volume, high volume, you know, you could say low, medium, and high, but let's just stick to low and high to make it easy. And in this direction, you've got what's called margin. And that's not necessarily the price. Margin, for example, is if you sell a $10 bushel of corn and you got $8 in growing that, you've got a 20% margin. Okay? If you're selling a bag of cookies, okay, that it cost $8 and you sell it for 10, you still got a 20% margin. And a lot of people think of margin works the other way back. In other words, margin is what percent of your sales price is left over after the cost of getting that thing that you have for sale. This is important. Do you understand that then?
How's that different from profit?
Well, because margin, in this case, it's the profit comes after all of what you've got to deal with in terms of your other costs, not just your production costs. Okay? Sales margin. Some people would call it the contribution margin because, you know, the more, let's say you've got the margin on one unit is 20%. Okay, so $2 in this case. If you sell 10,000 units, okay, the margin is still 20%. And what's called the contribution margin, the contribution that each piece makes, is still $2. But your gross margin on that is 20,000. Okay? Now you've got all your overhead and everything else to deduct from that, and that's where your profit drops through to the bottom. Okay? Does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay. So now, here we're looking at market. You've got high volume, low margin, high margin. Okay? You can only survive in 2 of those 4 squares. Okay? Because if you've got high volume and low margin, I'm going to call it Walmart as an example. It's a mass market commodities, you know, everything sold on price and low margins, but we're just moving a load of it. Okay, and so you get the contribution margins may be small, but your total volume is enough that then you can cover your other costs and make a profit. That's Walmart. If you've got low volume and low margin, you disappear. You're done. You cannot possibly survive because you're not making enough gross margin to cover all the other expenses that you have to deal with. And you disappear. Somebody once said, you go bankrupt slowly at first and then in one hell of a hurry. And trying to sell on a low volume, low margin market is one of the best ways to live that out. You've got high volume and high margin. Okay, that sounds great, doesn't it? You got lots of, you know what that does? It immediately attracts immense competition. And move back over there because your margins, once you get the competition in there, your margins shrink. There's a famous produce wholesaler in California called Frida. She was the one that first introduced kiwis to the United States in the mid-70s. And they were selling at about $3 a piece. Okay? Last I checked, I could find kiwis in the store at 6 for $1. Okay? So it just became a normal commodity SKU. Frida hasn't sold a kiwi, her own business, hasn't sold a kiwi since 1990. She saw the competition coming in, people were planting them all over the place because they liked the margin, and as the volume increased, it attracted all kinds of competition. The margin shrank back. She says, I'm out of here, it's a commodity, and I don't do commodities, I do new specialty products. And she went on to Starfruit, which are, carambola, and all kinds of other weird crap that nobody's ever heard of until she introduced it to the market. But when it becomes popular for whatever reason, and the margins start to shrink, she's done with it. Okay? Which is exactly the way to deal with this. Essentially, this coin is if you're the first one into that area, take your money and run. Okay? Because you will have competition. And you should use your profits from this kind of situation to build your next gig, okay, rather than spend it. And this bottom one is the specialty. That's your specialty market. It's low volume, high margin. Very specialty market. I'll give you an example. A side of my life that most people don't know about me is that I've earned my living as a restoration grade trim carpenter. Okay? I do a lot of fine stuff, not quite cabinetry grade, but a very good carpenter, working on buildings from the 1840s and 1860s and things like that, restoring them to their original position, condition and feel. Door hinges for those buildings. Door hinges were one thing in 1856. Door hinges were something else in 1880s. Door hinges were something else in 1900. So when you're doing a restoration, you want to have a genuine hinge. Okay? Now your ordinary garden variety hinge down at the hardware store is going to sell for $2 a pair, maybe $4 if they're brass. Okay? These restoration hinges, these period restoration hinges, can sell for up to $40 a pair. Okay? But it's a very low volume business. So they've got to have the margin. Well, I'm happy to pay the margin because I want those hinges to be able to do my restoration work. If I don't have them, I can't do the restoration work. So I'm happy to pay the price. Okay? Here is an interesting, it's another one of these key things I'd like you to remember. Profit arises when there is no readily available substitute. Say it again. Profit arises when there is no readily available substitute. Now consider number 2 yellow corn. Any bin load, truck load, car load, train load, boat load of number 2 yellow corn can substitute for any other. You want a readily available substitute? Try number 2 yellow corn. It's all the same crap. Okay? And, well, no wonder then that it's completely commoditized. Okay? And if you're going to play that number 2 yellow corn game, you're going to be like Walmart. Or, let me put it more specifically, if you are going to be in a commodity market where the primary competitive factor is price, where the primary competitive factor is price, you had better be the lowest cost operator in that entire business, or forget it. Okay? Because that's the only way you're going to have enough total margin, okay, to cover the costs. That's why there's really only like Walmart and Costco in this space, is because they do all kinds of things, some of which I think are morally questionable, at least Walmart. Costco pays their people $18 an hour. But you've got to find ways to keep your costs at an absolute minimum if you're going to live in this space. And to live in that space as a medium-sized family farm producer, here we come back to this thing, okay? That's not fun, because you're competing with some guy that's got 25,000 acres and number 2 yellow corn. And all the big equipment, and he's going to be much more efficient than you are in that environment. So that's a really nasty spot. Well, this one is no fun because it attracts competition. This one disappears. For most of us, it leaves us with this corner, the specialty market. Well, organic is one kind of a specialty market. But things are not so easy in the organic specialty market right now. Two things are going on. First, like with Frida's kiwis, which were a specialty market at first, they were low volume and high margin, and then they moved up to here, and then they moved over to here. But with any specialty market, or some people call it a niche market, that's French for the a little place in the wall where a bird would build her nest. It's a niche. So it's like a specialty little hole in the wall. It's a hole in the wall kind of a market if you think of it that way. The nature of niche markets is that they disappear. They eventually disappear. Okay? As either what happens is that the volume starts to pick up, okay, or the margins disappear for whatever reason. Okay? And sometimes as the volume begins to pick up, the margins start to disappear. Are you following the thinking here? Okay, this is hugely important in terms of managing your marketing and how you do your marketing as an organic grower and how you make that decision. Okay? So organic is a niche market, a specialty market. Okay? But if the sales volume of organic starts to pick up and the margins are high, what does it do? It attracts competition, which moves the margins this way. Well, as I was saying, Walmart and Costco are selling a lot of organic stuff right now. We're seeing this dynamic in the organic market right now. Okay. Do we like it? No. Okay. Do we like it when the local elevator is often putting the floor under the price of the organic grain? No, because that doesn't help our margins at all. In fact, our costs are usually probably higher, so now we're in a double bind. So what's going on here? I want to introduce you to what's called the S-curve. Okay? And there's a couple ways you can divide it, but each of these phases, I mean, this is in terms of the market. So you're going from 0% of the market to 10% of the market here, or so, or even from 0. You could do another one where it's 0 to 1, okay? And you can put another one out here that's like 99 to 100. This is 50. This is 90. This is 99. So this should make that 1. So you've got those 4 phases. And then you've got these other ones. And these are this phase out here, that less than 1% of the market, these are called innovators. That was me selling organic produce in 1972. Okay? It's an innovator. Here from the market. You've got what are called early adopters. And this applies to both consumers, you know, who was buying organic produce in '72. Okay, only the innovators. Okay. Who, you know, the early adopters is when it moves from 1% of your market to 10% of your market. Okay. Here you have what's called the early majority. Can't even write anymore. The early majority. That's what takes it from 10 to 50% of your market. Then your late majority. Which takes it from 50 to 90%. These out here are called laggards. Your very late adopters. And from 99 out, these are called the diehards. I have not had a television since 1967. Okay, if you're in the television business, I'm out there in that diehard section. I have not had a watch since 1964. Same deal. I have not eaten anything in McDonald's since 1959. Okay, in those areas, I'm totally a diehard. Okay, I was programming computers in 1968 and bought one of the very first PCs in '82 to teach my kids. And I had, at the OCIA annual meeting in 1990, I had one of the very first laptop computers that cost me a shit pot of money. And I actually had to pay $800 to upgrade my RAM from 1 meg to 3 megs. You know, I mean, but boy, did it ever help me. It helped me with my inspection work and everything. It was worth it. So, you know, it depends on what you are. So I'm a complete diehard on some things, and I was an innovator or early adopter on others. Okay, and if every commodity's going to have, everything's going to have this curve. The question is, well, first of all, here, let's see if I can see if the orange works. I don't think it does. That section right there is where you make your money in a product life cycle. And here's how we look at it. You can tell where you are. These things tend to last about 7 years each. Okay? And sometimes it's a little more, but the introduction of the automobile followed that pattern. Okay, until it was pretty much universal, but there's still some people who never would buy an automobile. Okay? Each of these is about 7 years. So, the question is, where are you in this? The good thing is you can figure out where you are by the question that is being asked in regard to your product. Okay? This is huge. Okay? This is, you know, the pay attention moment. Okay? Pay attention now so you grab it so that you can pay attention later when you're trying to sell stuff. In the innovation stage, the first question is, what is this? What is it? Huh? You know, it's that kind of a question. And in the early adopter phase, where can I find it? It's just not very widely available. You know, think about trying to find organic vegetables in 1978. Okay, where do I find these things? Certainly not down at Walmart. Okay,